Yo, welcome back to another tutorial, guys. So we've got another image sent in. We're trying to recreate a really natural and smooth looking image this time. Let's get over to his Instagram. I'll show you what we're working with. So you guys go give him a follow down in the description if you like his work. His links will be down there. We come down, we are going to be working with this shot right here. So he's sent this in to me, trying to recreate that really smoothness, the real natural look, and there's definitely a bit of a fade in those shadows and blacks. So that's what we're going to be trying to achieve. A little bit to the highlights as well, keeping it nice and soft. So yeah, you guys, if you like his work, links down in the description. And yeah, we're going to lower the vibrance a little. There's not much grain. Yeah, lower the clarity a little for that smooth look to the image. But yeah, if you like his work, go give him a follow, guys. Let's get into this tutorial. And also, if you like his style, come over here to his website, and then if you go click on shop, you guys can come check out his presets. So if you really like his style, you want a whole pack of them, come over here, check them out. I'll be putting a link down in the description. But let's get back to his Instagram. And yeah, let's get into Lightroom, see if we can create something really nice and smooth and natural looking. And I'll just go over the equipment and settings used to get this image. So if we come down, so this was shot on the Canon EOS R at f4, so nice and sharp, a bit of a shallow depth of field because the subject's so close, but nice and sharp at f4, 37mm, ISO 200, and a shutter speed of 125. And this was shot on the Canon 24 to 105 f4 Canon L lens. So yeah, those settings are pretty self-explanatory. Let's get into this one. So here's the raw unedited one that he sent me, and then a screenshot of his Instagram. So you can see this image is a very subtle amount of the editing compared to what I usually do. But for this one, I'll just show you the cropping first. So as you can see, we cropped in a lot, really centered her right in the middle, and then placed the horizon right on the upper third there. So using rule of thirds. And then if we just come over, let's get to this edit. So originally I used my film and vintage preset to get quite close to what he has. It has a nice curve in it for just a subtle amount that keeps quite a natural looking image. So I used that, and then yeah, I changed quite a few things about it, but I'll just start from scratch to show you guys. But that some of those changes from that preset will be in this. So let's start by enabling profile corrections. So that's going to get rid of any vignetting and stuff like that. Right, let's drop exposure just a touch. We'll add in some contrast. Now this looks like a bit too much contrast, but I'm going to do a curve down here which will take out a lot of contrast. We need to add in a fade. So as you can see, if I bring up this, we lose quite a lot of contrast, but we do get a fade in those blacks, but we don't have enough contrast. So as you can see, fade, but we don't have enough contrast. So we need to add in extra contrast up here before we do our curves down here. Right, so I'll just quickly, I'll bring up shadows a bit, and then we'll fine tune all this after we've done the curves. So I just really roughly just added in some contrast. I can see the shadows being brought up a bit, but really you're gonna go back and forth between curves and up here. But for these tutorials, I've sort of got it all figured out, so I don't have to do that with you guys. So the tutorials can be much faster, but that's reality, that's what you're gonna be doing. So I'll do the curves and then I'll explain them after I've done them. Okay, so that's the curve done, and as I said, I used the preset for this edit because it worked out really close to his. So I just kept most of the curves the same. There's just a really gentle drop to the shadows there, in the red and green, and then the blue pretty much the same, maybe a tiny bit of a lift to the midtones, There's no real color shift, so if I come back and just say reset this curve and turn off just the red, green, and blue channels, you can see there's pretty much no color shift there. So yeah, it's so color shift, by color shift I mean if I drag the reds up, there's a color shift to the image, but it looks pretty much the same colors as before we did the curves. So it just adds in a tiny bit of contrast. And then what's nice about having a curve in your presets is that you've got the option to just say add a little more purple to the shadows, and you don't have to go through and draw them all. So if we come back, let's talk about this one here. And this one's just a real nice gradual S-curve, well, very slight. So the whites here, I brought that down because there's going to be a bit of a flatness to the whites there, and then there's a good strength to the black fade here. And then I put an extra dot here because we want this nice gradual lift to the curve, and then just a tiny bit out of the midtones, tiniest bit out of the highlights, and that gives quite a natural look. It's not overdone, it's just a nice fade that I think works well with this edit here. So we're going to roll with that. Okay, let's move on. Let's up here we maybe drop the clarity. We'll fine tune all these settings now that we've done our curves. Okay, so up here I want to bring up the shadows a bit more. I'm going to bring down the blacks. So if I look in areas such as this, we're just not quite dark enough. So bringing them down. Now this image is very soft. So to create a softness, I'm going to bring down the highlights. And those whites can stay about there. Now I want to darken the bottom of the image here. I think we're not too bad up and around this area of the image, the middle here, but down the bottom we're too bright. So if I just come to filters, now I've already got these placed for the tutorial. I just want to darken that just to keep your eye up near the subject's face, not down here. Okay, I think that looks great. And yeah, as you can see, our exposure is looking really good now. So there's going to be a few other things. So we need to make our subject a little brighter to stand off the background. So you can do that with brushes. So I've just go to brushes. Now I've got these all placed. I've just tick here. This is where I've already brushed. So what I want to do is just make her pop off the background a bit by bringing up the shadows a touch. I might add a little bit of clarity, make her pop a little more, and then she stands off that little bit more. I want to bring out her face just a touch. So this filter, tiny bit of exposure, and then I'm going to do a small one inside that will target these shadows on her face just to bring them up again just a little bit. So I'll just drag up exposure. Okay, I think we're looking good. Let's keep going. Let's maybe do some colors now. So come down to HSL. I don't think we need any split toning. As you can see, we don't have many colors to our shadows or in here. I can't really see if there's any reds or warmth. The image stays pretty cool, so I don't think we need any split toning. Really natural tones. Let's just go straight to HSL and work with these. So I think our skin tones look a bit orange, so let's shift them a little more to a yellow. Green, so we're very green at the moment, and over here they look slightly warmer. They're a little more of an orange. I'm going to go this direction. Now you want to be careful when trying to match up the yellows, or the greens I mean, because sometimes yellows affect a lot of the greens. So you've got to balance them and figure out which greens are actually yellows and which greens are actually green. So see if we can spot. So, and then if we shift this one, see the yellows are definitely affecting way back there. So I'm going to keep them where they are because they look pretty good back there. But the greens definitely can come a bit warmer. So the blues here, or the aquas, so aquas aren't doing that much in this image, a little bit in the darker blues, but I want a bit of a teal back there. We look quite purple, so I'm just going to shift the blues just a touch this way, and then they're obviously too saturated, so I'll do that now. Just come down here, drop them. Greens are too saturated, so as you can see, we have way more color in our greens. Let's drop them. But then our yellows, I'm going to bring up our yellows, and that's probably going to make our greens stand out a bit. Sort of gives a nice shine to the grass. Go with that. Going to bring down our oranges as I think our skin tone is too saturated. Take out a little of the redness of the lips. If we come down to luminance, so luminance is the brightness of colors. I want to add a little bit of brightness to this image. We look a little dark, and brightness to colors will just add a little bit of vibrance. So I'll just do a bit to the skin tones, make her shine and stand out a little bit. Same with the reds, just a little bit. Greens, just add a little bit of a shine to them. So blues in the background, you can see we're very dark back there. I'll just lighten them up. Aquas aren't doing that much, but if I shift the blues, do quite a bit. Okay. Right, if we come down, maybe I'll do some grain and sharpening. So if we just come right down, just do a little bit of grain. It's not really noticeable at all. There's a chance he doesn't use any. It could be just the ISO shot at ISO 200. So probably has added a bit of grain. So I'll just put 10 in, a very little amount. Back up. Lift sharpening up. If you're dropping clarity, you probably want to bring sharpening up. So we just dropped it a little, and that will give that real natural smooth look to your image, because images can look quite digital. So especially if you're going for like a film natural look, consider dropping the clarity. If we come back up here, let's drop the contrast a touch. Maybe the whites could come down a bit. I think maybe our yellows or greens could be more saturated. So if we just come back down to saturation, let's maybe lift these greens up out there, and they could maybe be a touch more warm. So if we just shift them direction. And then oranges, maybe a touch more back into the skin tone, only a tiny bit. Yeah, and I think we are about done. So yeah, I might just leave it there, guys. So keys to this edit was this really subtle but nice S-curve here. So bring down the white point just a touch. It brings down the highlights just ever so slightly, same with midtones, and then gives a nice fade to those blacks and shadows there. So if I just reset that and see how we don't have a fade to the image, it's quite harsh contrast, and then that will really soften it up. So clarity sort of does that too, to the texture especially, softens it up, makes it look a bit more smooth. Vibrance down a bit. Yeah, and then I'll just leave it there, guys. A really subtle edit there, and yeah, really natural and pleasing looking. And one other thing worth pointing out about this curve, what it's doing is, so you can see up here we've got a bit of a gap there between our whites, which is all these, and the edge of the histogram. Same with our blacks, so our blacks are over here, and then the black point is over here. We've got a bit of a gap there. That's because of the fade. So if we reset our curve there, you can see how that drags it out, creates more contrast. And then if we bring our curve back in, see how that pushes the histogram in. So now let's get his image right here so we can look at the histogram of his edit, the screenshot off Instagram. And you can see how our histogram is very similar. So you can see how there's a gap between the whites and the gap for the blacks there, about the same as ours. So we'll go back to our one. You can see how the histogram doesn't change that much. And again, if I reset it, you can see how there's more contrast and that histogram is stretched out. So that's what that fade is doing there. Reset it. And yeah, very similar to his one. So yeah, I'll leave it there, guys.